Nearly every prophet of Allah faced moments where they were deeply lonely, isolated, or even emotionally broken. This is a reality we often overlook when we read their stories in the Qur'an. We admire the strength of the prophets, the wisdom, the miracles, but we forget that behind all of that was a deep personal struggle. Their loneliness was not a sign of weakness. Rather, it was part of their training. Allah chose them, and with that choice came a responsibility so great, it required them to be separated from the crowd. Take the example of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi. When he discovered the truth of Tawheed, he was just a young man. He went against his whole society, even his father. He destroyed the idols and stood alone in front of a furious nation. They threw him into the fire. Alone, no one stood by him. But what happened? Allah says, "We said, O fire, be coolness and safety for Ibrahim." That moment of being completely alone, isolated, rejected, it was where Allah manifested His presence the strongest. This tells us something powerful. Sometimes, only in the deepest loneliness will you feel the nearness of Allah. Now look at Prophet Musa alayhi salam. He fled Egypt after unintentionally killing a man. He found himself in a completely foreign land, sitting under a tree with nothing, no home, no food, no family. In that moment of vulnerability, he turned to Allah and said, "My Lord, indeed I am in desperate need of whatever good you send down to me." That dua came from a place of being completely broken, but it was from there that his life changed. He found safety, a family, a mission, and he eventually returned to confront Pharaoh by the command of Allah. Loneliness is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is preparation. Prophet Muhammad, the best of creation, experienced this more than anyone. Before prophethood, he would spend long hours in the cave of Hira, away from the city, away from people, in deep reflection. This period of solitude was not accidental. It was part of Allah's plan to prepare him. And even after he received revelation, he was often left alone, mocked, persecuted. His companions were tortured, his beloved wife Khadija passed away, his uncle Abu Talib died, and he was left to face his mission with very few people on his side. This loneliness, this feeling of being broken and abandoned, it was there, even for him. Yet he never lost hope in Allah. There is something deeply divine in the way Allah breaks us before He builds us. Just like gold is put into intense fire to purify it, the hearts of those He loves are purified through trials, through heartbreaks, through silence, through being left out. Not because Allah hates you, but because He sees something in you that you may not yet see. Sometimes, you'll find yourself sitting in a crowd and feeling like you don't belong. Your soul is restless. Your heart feels heavy. You're doing all the right things, but still, there's this emptiness. My dear brother, my dear sister, don't think you're strange. Perhaps Allah is calling you toward Him. He is removing you from distractions. He is making space in your heart, space that can only be filled with His love. People often think being chosen by Allah means life becomes easier. But if you study the Qur'an and the lives of the prophets, you'll realize that being chosen often means your path becomes more difficult. But it's in that difficulty that your soul is strengthened, your faith is tested, and your relationship with Allah becomes real. Allah doesn't abandon those He chooses, He trains them. And the training is never comfortable. So when you feel lonely or broken, pause and reflect. Maybe this is not a curse. Maybe it is the mark of the chosen. Maybe Allah is saying, I want you close to me. And to bring you close, I must take you away from what's holding you back. Don't despair. Don't compare your path to others. Their journey is not yours. Your pain, your tears, your nights of silent dua, they're all seen by the One who hears what the heart cannot even say. Keep going, keep trusting. The loneliness of today might just be the platform for your elevation tomorrow. Tests, heartbreaks, and isolation are among the most powerful tools that Allah uses to prepare and purify His chosen servants. It may not make sense at first glance. Why would the most merciful allow pain to enter the life of someone He loves? Why would He let a sincere believer go through hardship, loss, or deep emotional distress? But when you truly understand the way Allah nurtures His servants, you begin to see that the trials you face are not punishments, they are divine training. If you look into the Qur'an, you'll find that the people who were closest to Allah were often the ones who went through the most severe tests. These weren't just physical tests, like illness or hunger. They were emotional and spiritual trials that reached deep into the soul. This is because when Allah chooses someone for a higher purpose, He knows that they must be strong, sincere, and spiritually prepared. And this preparation does not happen through comfort. It happens through struggle. The pain you feel in moments of heartbreak is not random. It is not a waste. It's a lesson. Every tear you shed in secret is recorded by Allah. Every moment of despair that brings you to your knees in dua is part of your transformation. That brokenness is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to break down your ego, your attachment to this world, and your dependence on people, so that what remains is something raw, something honest, something humble, a soul that depends solely on Allah. Allah does not train His beloved servants the same way the world trains athletes or soldiers. This isn't about physical strength, it's about the strength of your Iman, your trust in Him when things go dark. Allah trains the hearts of the believers to rely on Him alone, and that training often comes in the form of detachment, losing things, losing people, feeling uncertain, feeling empty, so that the heart begins to call out to the only one who truly remains. When Allah wants to raise someone in rank, He first purifies their heart. And just like a diamond is polished through intense pressure, the believer's heart is polished through trials. We may ask, why me? But sometimes the better question is, what does Allah want me to become through this? Take, for example, the story of Yusuf li-Ashlim. He was thrown into a well by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and then imprisoned for years. At every stage, he could have given up. He could have thought, why is this happening to me? But he remained steadfast, and through those years of hardship, Allah was shaping him into a man of immense character, wisdom, and leadership. He went from a lonely prisoner to a trusted advisor to the king. The very pain that could have broken him became the foundation for his rise. The same pattern exists in the life of our Prophet Muhammad. His heart was trained through loss, through grief, through rejection. He buried his loved ones. He was insulted and attacked, but he kept turning back to Allah. He didn't allow the hardship to harden his heart. Instead, it made him softer, more compassionate, more reliant on his Lord. And because of that deep training, Allah gave him a responsibility that would change the course of human history. So when you feel like everything is falling apart, when you feel lonely, broken, or lost, pause and remember that Allah never wastes your pain. Every hardship is either a purification or an elevation, or both. Your heart is being prepared for something greater. You may not see it now. You may not understand it yet, but trust in the one who is guiding you. Sometimes the pain you're going through is actually the answer to the dua you once made. Maybe you asked Allah to make you stronger. Maybe you asked Him to bring you closer. Maybe you asked for Jannah. And maybe this test is the path He chose to get you there. Don't rush the process. Don't resist the lesson. Lean into it. Let the pain teach you. Let the loneliness bring you closer to the one who never leaves. Let the heartbreak remind you that there is no love more pure, more healing, more lasting than the love of Allah. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. You are not being punished. You are being purified. The fire that burns you today might be the very thing that lights your path tomorrow. Trust the process. Trust Allah, because He is Al-Hakim, the most wise. And He never tests without purpose. One of the greatest forms of mercy that Allah bestows upon a believer is separating them from the distractions of the dunya. We often see this separation as loss, rejection, or disappointment. But in reality, it is one of the most profound signs that Allah wants to bring a person closer to Him. The more Allah loves someone, the more He purifies their heart. And to purify a heart, sometimes it must first be emptied. Emptied of attachment, emptied of false hopes, emptied of anything that takes a higher place than Allah in your life. When Allah separates you from certain people or circumstances, it is not always because they were bad for you in an obvious way. Sometimes they may be good people or comfortable situations, but they held a place in your heart that should have been reserved for Allah alone. And so, out of mercy, Allah removes them. He detaches your heart from them so that He can fill it with something far better, contentment with Him. It's easy to cling to the people and things of this world. We find comfort in relationships, in our plans, in our careers, in our achievements. But these are all temporary, and if our happiness depends on them, then our happiness will always be fragile. So, when Allah sees that our hearts are leaning too much on what is unstable, He intervenes. He pulls us back, and sometimes that process hurts. But the pain of separation is not permanent. In fact, it becomes the very pathway to a deeper connection with Allah. Think about the moments when you felt the closest to your Lord. Were they during times of ease and comfort? Or were they during the nights when your heart was shattered, when you cried to Him in desperation, when no one else understood what you were feeling? It's in those moments, when you are cut off from the world, that you often find Allah the most. There is a wisdom in why the believers are sometimes pushed away from worldly attachments. Allah wants your love to be pure, not dependent on anything that can fade or change. And so He gives you moments of loneliness so that you can learn to enjoy solitude with Him. He removes the people you used to rely on so that you can learn that He is Al-Wakil, the best disposers of affairs. He lets your plans fall apart so that you can learn that His plan is always better. This doesn't mean that Islam calls us to live isolated or joyless lives. Islam encourages family, community, and love. But it also teaches us not to make those things the center of our existence. The true center must always be Allah. Everything else revolves around that. If something pulls you away from Him, even slightly, then perhaps it's His mercy that is taken away, so you can be redirected toward Him. When we lose something we love, we often think we are being deprived, but perhaps it is the exact opposite. Maybe we are being prepared to receive something better, or maybe we are being protected from something harmful that we couldn't see. And even if we never understand the reason in this life, we must trust that Allah does. He sees the full picture. He knows what our hearts need, even more than we do. This kind of detachment is not about being cold or distant. It's about balance. It's about loving people but not placing our ultimate hope in them. It's about making plans but not tying our hearts to outcomes. It's about living in this world but not letting the world live in us. When the heart is too full of dunya, there is no space left for the sweetness of Iman. So Allah, in His mercy, clears it out. And that clearing process, though painful, is transformative. It teaches you to sit in silence and find peace. It teaches you to raise your hands in dua when you feel overwhelmed. It teaches you to trust in Allah, even when nothing makes sense. Slowly, your heart begins to find a new kind of comfort, not in people, not in success, but in the remembrance of Allah. As Allah says in the Qur'an, verily in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. Surah A'rad 13:28. That rest is only possible when the heart is free from excessive dependence on the dunya. So, if you feel like you're being separated, pulled away, or made to stand alone. It may not be a punishment. It may be a divine invitation to rediscover the one who has always been with you. And once you taste that closeness with Allah, you will realize that nothing in the world can compare. The more a person grows spiritually, the more they begin to feel distant from a world that doesn't share the same values. It's a quiet loneliness, not because they are unloved or unpopular, but because their soul begins to see things differently. When a believer becomes serious about their faith, about living for Allah, about aligning their life with the Qur'an and Sunnah, they will inevitably feel misunderstood, even by their closest friends, sometimes even by family. This emotional and spiritual distance is not unusual. It's actually a natural part of the journey toward Allah. You begin to notice it when conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. You can no longer laugh at things that displease Allah. Jokes that used to make you smile now make you uncomfortable. You don't find comfort in the same gatherings anymore. Music that used to be your escape now feels like noise. Outfits you used to wear without thinking now seem inappropriate. This isn't arrogance, this is transformation. Your heart is being softened. Your soul is being awakened. But the cost of that awakening is that you begin to see how far the world is from the truth. And so you feel alone. Sometimes your sincerity is met with suspicion. People ask, "Why are you so extreme now? Why are you isolating yourself? Why don't you loosen up a bit?" It's painful, not because they hate you, but because they don't understand you anymore. You're not judging them, you're just trying to be better. But growth always threatens comfort zones. When you grow, you remind others that they are standing still, and not everyone is ready to reflect on that. But know this, even the prophets were misunderstood. Prophet Nuh ﷺ was mocked by his own people, including his own son. Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ was rejected by his father. Prophet Yusuf ﷺ was betrayed by his brothers. Prophet Nuh ﷺ was constantly doubted by his people. And our beloved Prophet Muhammad, he was called a madman, a liar, a magician. The most truthful man in all of history was rejected by his own tribe, his own uncles. Why? Because truth is rarely welcomed with open arms. It shakes the foundations people have built their lives upon. So if you feel isolated in your efforts to follow the straight path, take heart. You are walking in the footsteps of the greatest people who ever lived. This feeling of being misunderstood, of being out of place in a world full of contradiction, it is a sign that you are being drawn closer to Allah. You are starting to see with different eyes, eyes that are guided by light, not just by desire. But this path is not easy. It requires patience. It requires strength. It requires that you learn to be content even when people don't validate you. That you seek closeness with Allah even when others distance themselves from you. That you continue to do what's right even when it costs you relationships, opportunities, or status. Allah never abandons the sincere. He sees your sacrifices, your struggles, your loneliness, and He compensates in ways the world can never match. He gives you tranquility in your heart, depth in your prayers, sweetness in your remembrance, and barakah in your steps. While others chase likes and approval, Allah places nur, light, in your face and dignity in your actions. It's okay if people don't get it. They don't need to. What matters is that you remain sincere, that you keep your heart soft, that you avoid arrogance or bitterness. Never look down on those who are still finding their way. Your job is not to judge them, but to keep walking with humility and compassion. Maybe your change will be the silent dawah that inspires someone else tomorrow. We live in a time where the strange becomes normal and the normal becomes strange. But the Prophet said, Islam began as something strange, and it will return to being strange as it began. So give glad tidings to the strangers. Sahih Muslim. Be from among those strangers. Be okay with not fitting in. Be okay with walking a path that not many walk, because the more rare your path is, the more precious your destination becomes. So when you feel that ache in your heart, the one that comes from being unseen or misunderstood, remember that your Lord sees everything. And when he sees a servant walking toward him, even if alone, he sends angels to accompany them. You are never truly alone when you walk toward Allah. We often associate strength with loudness, visibility, and dominance. But in the eyes of Allah, true strength is quiet, consistent, and deeply rooted in sincerity. There's a kind of strength that doesn't show in physical power or public recognition. It shows in silent endurance. It shows in the tears you wipe away when no one is watching. It shows in the choices you make when you could have taken the easier, more convenient path. It shows in your commitment to Allah, even when everything around you pushes you in the opposite direction. It is this quiet strength that the chosen ones often carry. They walk among people who may never know what they're going through, who may never see the pain they conceal, who may never recognize the burdens they carry. But Allah sees it all, and in His eyes, that is where honor lies. Think about the strength of the mother of Musa alayhi salam. She put her newborn son into a basket and placed him in the river. Why? Because Allah inspired her to do so. Imagine the emotional pain, the fear, the uncertainty. Yet she obeyed. She didn't make a scene. She didn't shout. She just submitted. That silent act of faith was so powerful that Allah mentioned it in the Qur'an, preserved it forever as an example of unshakable tawakkul. Or look at Maryam alayhi salam. When she withdrew from society and gave birth to Isa alayhi alone, she faced accusations, isolation, and intense pain, but she remained firm. She stayed silent when Allah commanded her to, and her silence spoke louder than 1,000 words. That is not weakness, that is incredible strength, the kind that only comes from deep reliance on Allah. This kind of strength is not always visible, even to those around you. Some of the strongest people are those who appear the quietest. They don't show off their struggles, they don't announce their sacrifices, they just keep going. They hold on to their salah when their world is falling apart. They fast quietly, they give in secret. They forgive when they could easily take revenge. They let go when it would be easier to hold on. And they continue to love Allah even when their life doesn't look like the storybook image of ease and blessing. This is the essence of Ihsan, to worship Allah as though you see Him. And if you cannot see Him, then know that He sees you. That constant awareness, that internal discipline, that hidden sincerity, it produces a kind of strength that no trial can destroy. It's not that the person doesn't feel pain, it's that their foundation is rooted in something deeper than the pain. Their faith gives them stability, not immunity from suffering, but the strength to carry it with grace. We live in a world that often celebrates the loudest voice in the room, but in the sight of Allah, the most beloved may be the one who is barely noticed, the one who prays Qiyam quietly, the one who makes dua for others in secret, the one who gives charity and hides it so well that even their left hand doesn't know what their right hand gave, the one who remains patient through betrayal, illness, loss, and yet never loses trust in Allah. These are the people whose strength is often overlooked by the world but celebrated by the heavens. So, if you find yourself feeling invisible, if your sacrifices go unnoticed, if your patience is not praised, don't be discouraged. Remember that Allah sees every moment. Every time you bite your tongue for the sake of peace, every time you hold back anger, every time you push yourself to do something for His sake, none of it is wasted, none of it goes unseen. Your quiet strength is what will elevate you on the day of judgment. On that day, it won't be about how popular you were, how many followers you had, or how loud your voice was. It will be about the sincerity of your heart, the consistency of your actions, and the endurance of your soul in the face of trials. Keep holding on, even if no one claps for you, even if no one understands your journey, even if you walk alone, because in that loneliness, in that quiet perseverance, you are never truly alone. Allah is with you, and His companionship is more powerful than the approval of the entire world.